Well, welcome to the 4th annual Elder Speak hosted by the Ripple Foundation. My name is Drew Zabrocki. I'm the president of the foundation. We are so excited to share Elder Speak with you today. But first, thank you. Thanks for being here. I mean, this is a great crowd, and it's you being here, your support of the foundation, your engagement here today that makes this event possible. So we really appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. We have a fantastic program in store for you in this beautiful venue. We would like to take just a moment in the beginning to thank some of the people that made this all possible for us here today, starting with Icicle Creek Center for the Arts. They have continued to support this foundation year after year, and Rebecca, David, and the crew are just excellent to work with, wonderful, wonderful hosts, and we very much appreciate their support. So could you just join me in giving them some of our warm thank you for the Icicle Creek Center for the Arts? Absolutely. Amazing crew, for sure. You know, we've had a ton of support this year. It's been great. I want to also acknowledge our friends at Eagle Creek Winery, once again hosting with fantastic wine. I see many of you have been enjoying that. There's more in the lobby. Feel free to help us get rid of that here after the short presentation. And if you haven't been up to Eagle Creek Winery, it is a beautiful place. It's a short trip right up Eagle Creek. It's certainly with the short drive right outside of town. I encourage you to stop by and visit our friends at Eagle Creek Winery. Davis Furniture, you'll see when the screen comes up, 4th year in a row that Debbie there at Davis Furniture in Wenatchee provided our stage and makes our elders feel right at home. We appreciate Davis Furniture. And Kashmir Valley Bank. So nice to be in their circle of friends, our bank, Kashmir Valley Bank. And last but not least, Charles Steinberg of Steinberg Law. In addition to the Steinberg's generous support of Elder Speak, Charles Steinberg is also a board member here at the Ripple Foundation, so we certainly appreciate Steinberg, and we encourage each and every one of you to show your appreciation and support for our sponsors today and throughout the year. So, round of applause for our sponsors, and we'll get on with that. As you can imagine, it takes a ton of time and energy and resources to put on an event such as this. And we have volunteers and supplies, financial contributions and support that make it all possible for you today. And it's not only the donations and the support at these events, but it's also participation in our events throughout the year. And I'm really excited to talk about a few announcements that we have for you this year relative to the Ripple Foundation's events. And you may have seen on the slideshow earlier before the event, we have lots of things going on. And a couple things to update you on. Inward Bound. Now, I see a lot of familiar faces. Many of you have participated in Inward Bound. It's this incredible experiential retreat that really has impacted so many lives. And we have heard loudly and clearly from the community that they want more. They want to go deeper and really get into the essence of what's possible as we learn how to unpack tools to navigate life. And, I can speak personally that the things that I've learned through these courses have been absolutely pivotal in my life. So we're going deeper. We've revitalized the entire course. I want you to be paying attention to that newsletter that goes out. If you're not on our newsletter, you can sign up on our website. But it's a whole new Inward Bound. So if this is your first year or your 10th time taking the course, you're going to love it this winter. So be paying attention for that. Also, you're going to see mindful facilitation. What a success. We're getting tremendous demand for mindful facilitation. So mindful facilitation, if you don't know, so this is our series of professional workshops where we work with board members and directors, everyone from public servants and management and leadership teams as well as their staff, helping them to be mindful in the workplace and create more efficient and effective teams. And so that has been so popular, we're going to have multiple events for that in the spring and in the fall. And then one last quick event, just being mindful of everybody's time. Again, on our website, coming up October 11th, there's a free class that's being offered. And this is being offered by one of our partners. So the foundation not only hosts these kinds of events for you, but we also offer an opportunity for others in the community to come under our umbrella, and we help them to facilitate classes and courses as well. This one I'm especially excited for, and that is The Successful Child. It's a free workshop, October 11th in Wenatchee, and you can learn how to help your child be more creative, increase self-confidence, develop intuition, improve focus, clarity, and understanding. Wow, I mean, that would be cool, right? I mean, kids with focus, clarity, and understanding. I feel old kids these days, right? But please do check out our website. You can sign up for our newsletter. If you're not getting our newsletter, please do sign up. We send something out pretty regularly, but not too much. And you can find at the bottom of your program is our website address, and it's theripplefoundation.org. And if you're not on the internet or anything like that, you can just give us a call. Our phone number's around as well, and we'd be happy to mail you a copy. So we're going to move on here in just a moment. We have some cool things in store for you, but before we do, I would just like to take a moment. If you're a board member, a staff member, a steward, or a volunteer for the foundation, would you mind just standing briefly so that we could recognize you? These guys are absolutely amazing. Yes, right here. Round of applause. Yes, for sure. And we have so much that goes into the foundation, for sure. So much for them. And many that aren't here as well. We just couldn't do it without the volunteers and the sponsors that we have that make this all possible. Every nonprofit needs those people and the passion that they bring every day. And we are indeed a nonprofit, and that's great news for you. That means we are more than happy to offer you a tax receipt, 100% tax-deductible donation. And now many of you maybe contributed to the jars, and we certainly appreciate that. But we would love to make sure and recognize you for your support. So there are envelopes on the front table in the lobby. You can use a check or a bank card, and we'll be sure to make sure that you have a tax-deductible receipt. We really appreciate your support. Also, people have asked about how to plan for giving to the Ripple Foundation through their estate plans, and that is a great way to make sure that your gift not only makes an impact today, but for generations to come. So let us know if you have an interest in that. Speaking of generations, we're excited to get started with the program. We're going to go ahead and kick things off with a video, which I'm going to show you right now. And this is the result of my wife and best friend, Sarah, who went out to the community connecting generations, just asking one question.
Can you tell me what an elder is to you?
An elder is a old person.
I don't know. I have no idea. I've never even... No one's ever asked me that.
An elder is someone that they've
An elder?
What is an elder?
Ask them.
I don't know. Maybe an elevator?
They probably know your future. Probably.
So the people that are old and they can't walk at all. We can walk, but they are kind of slow.
I think an elder is a miner.
I think it's the missionaries.
An elephant. Or an elf.
What is an elder? What does that word mean to you?
I would say if I was thinking an elder was, then I would think it would be a person that would live in the forest, like in the older days or something.
Can you tell me what an elder is to you?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'm guessing it's An old person?
I think that an elder is somebody who is older than you, who is wiser than you, and they don't have to be just in your family. They could be across the street or across the neighborhood.
An elder is like an older person that like looks over you and like, cause they're kind of like ancestors, but they're like elders.
It means a person that is older than I am.
An elder person is an older person, like a grandparent, who has been through a lot more things than I have and who's easy to look up to.
An elder is someone who's like maybe someone who takes care of you or someone that you should respect.
I think an elder is someone who is older than you in your family that you look up to.
And they are very wise, and they are, you can like, they can like tell you what the past is.
It means that you're older than someone else. It's people who need other people to help them be taken care of.
To me, an elder is somebody older than I am, somebody with more experience and is wiser than I am, and somebody to look up to.
It is an old person that has lived for a very long time.
An elder is somebody who is above the age of about 60, and you have to respect them because they've come before you.
An elder is someone who has experienced a lot of things and has a lot of wisdom.
I think an elder is someone that is older and that someone that we should respect.
Probably has more experience in life and challenges that come with it.
Bye!
Bye. I think that's it. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, that was an awesome experience to work with those children, and I really enjoyed it. I know my wife Sarah put a ton of work into it, but it's wonderful, and hope you enjoyed it as well. It's now time to kick off the show, and I'd like to invite my good friend Steve Stroud, our executive director, to the stage to introduce Elders Speak. And many of you know that Steve is not only our director, but he's also the co-founder, a steward, and really the inspiration behind the gifts that the foundation offers.
My sincere thanks to Drew and Sarah, who have worked tirelessly, is that the right word? Tirelessly, to put Elders Speak together. Thank you so very much. Thank you for showing up and attending. Someone once told me that you let another know that you care by showing up. So we certainly appreciate you showing up. So I got a question for you. Is there a difference between an elder and somebody that has lived a long time? I've been thinking about that. And there might be many answers, but for me, one of the answers would be that an elder has given some thoughtful consideration to their life experience. There might be other answers to that also, but I have another question for you. If an elder spoke some wisdom, but nobody heard it, do they still have wisdom? And I ask that because connecting generations, of course, is our tagline to this. But there's a responsibility for the elders, which we will get to witness this afternoon. It takes a lot of courage to come up on stage and to share your wisdom. But there's another half of the equation, and that's where you and I come in. That's where we listen. Because it's the giving of and the receiving of this wisdom that enriches our communities, that enriches our lives, and that parallels what these young children have said on film, that the wisdom then moves through the generations and makes our society more healthy and more resilient. So I would like to introduce Deb Pops and Teresa Delitzenberger, who are the true inspiration behind Elder Speak, and who have worked basically year-round with their hearts and their dedication and their passion to bring the wisdom of the elders into our community. So please join me in welcoming
Thank you, Steve. And thank you all for being here. What wonderful faces to look out on. So many friends, so many past elders from Elder Speak. I wonder if the elders that are here who have been in these seats, could you please raise your hands or stand so we can recognize you? Thank you. So Teresa and I have been on an incredible journey with 4 amazing elders. We have been meeting for the past year and enjoying their life experience stories, their wisdom, their laughter, sometimes some somber moments. Life isn't all laughter, but they have given us so much. They are Jane Hensel, Dennis Carper, Pat Moyer, and Otto Ross. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, for doing this. And here's Teresa.
Welcome. So I'd also like to recognize Mountain Meadows. Mountain Meadows has created an incredible home. Everyone who works there is like family. They are caring and loving and feel honored to care for the residents as well as just being there with them. So thank you, Mountain Meadows, for all that you do in our community. Okay, so we also have a film. This film was created by the students of the Wenatchee Valley Technical Cinematography class. It's a lot of words. So imagine this. We invite the elders to become elders on stage, and then we say, oh, by the way, you're going to be filmed, and it's with a high school student class, and come on over, and then they do it. Very bravely, I might add. The students interview with the help of Eric Link, their teacher, and they get some amazing stories from everyone. And then Jose Garcia Gaitan put the film together. So that's what we're going to be watching today. Enjoy.
I went over and started teaching skiing in Megève, and I spent the rest of the winter teaching skiing in Megève. And it was really interesting because still my French was very poor. I knew the French terms for skiing, but it was the working with the people I could not understand some of their French, or they couldn't understand my English. But I was very successful in working with them. One fellow had, in fact, I went out there and they assigned me to teach it. First thing, well, I very easy by knowing the terms and everything. He did not speak English at all, and he was there in the morning. So they talked to me. I'll take him out, sure. And then when we came back at noon, and here Roger was still standing there, and I said, well, there's 2 or other instructors I know are not busy this afternoon that can teach you in French. They're Frenchmen. And he said, nope, I want Otto. And I had him for a whole week, and we got along great. And you learn how to there's certain words you can use in certain ways, but you learn how to communicate besides language. And that was really a wonderful experience. And at the end of a week, he was skiing all over, and he had never skied before in his life. So it was just an unbelievable experience to be able to do that. If I can help somebody out, this is both in ski patrol and teaching skiing, it's such a great pleasure to be able to get them to enjoy a sport that I enjoyed, and get them so they can enjoy the mountains and the scenery. And you just don't teach them all just how to ski. You teach them the enjoyment of the mountain life. And some people that, especially like up here at Mission Ridge, we had quite a few years. We had this school up there. We would have the kids from the 5th grade coming up, and some of those kids, especially some of the Hispanics that had never had the opportunity to be on snow except for right around town, and we would take them up, and some of them said, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to scare it. I'm going to break everything." And we'd show them how easy and how safe it was, and then at the end of the day, these kids would just say, "Oh, we had the greatest time in our life." Well, what an experience! If you can have somebody and give them the great time of their life, that's one of the greatest gifts I think I have.
Wisdom, when I was thinking about it over my lifetime, I always thought it belonged to somebody else. I always thought the wisdom belonged to gurus from India or something. Wisdom came from a higher knowledge or a higher training than I had. But then as I realized, as I've gotten a little more senior in life, that I do have the wisdom of my experiences doing the wrong thing as well as doing some of the right things that I can pass on to grandkids and adolescents, that knowing very well that I made those mistakes and that's the direction they're heading. In adolescence, I had one experience as a teenager, actually more than one, but one I got caught at, was it's a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Gary, and we were friends all the way from probably kindergarten through high school. We had a tendency to get into trouble and do pranks Friday night or Saturday when we had time on, and we I'm talking 15, 16, 14, and this one situation, one Friday night we rode up to the park, middle of summer, Spokane, and we were hiding in trees, scaring people as they came to the park, and that didn't work out well for a young man who came through on his bike, and we jumped out of the bushes, scared him. Instead of riding down the path to get out of the park, he rode up over the hill, and he rode through a garden of plants and crashed and actually hit the concrete with his face on the other side and was really damaged. And when we went over to we heard him scream and cry. Everybody in the park came out, but when we went over to hear him and check him out, he had messed up his mouth and his teeth really bad. And we walked him home and told, his mom what happened. He got scared in the park and he crashed. And I caused that. At that point, I think you start to grow up and you realize that pulling pranks and being a jokester is one thing, but you can have consequences there that you're not expecting. It's just like, it was out for fun and people get scared and they say, and that sort of thing. But then when you have an accident happen because of silliness or, not thinking the whole process through, and you realize what damage it can cause, you change your behavior to some degree. Yeah, in fact, a lot, I would think. I would think after that incident, I think Gary and I stuck to probably raiding apple trees. The only one we hurt would be ourselves if we fell out of the tree, right? Yeah, so that's and then going through the military and having children and having advancement, you become more wise to the system that's happening, and but you're always learning. I'm 78 years old and I learn something new every day, but I think there's a period when you're going through adolescence that you think you know it all, but I haven't reached that yet. I thought when I was 15, 16, 17, maybe even 19, I knew it all, but then somebody disproved that, I'm sure, along the way.
Okay, this is to you. You young kids, our guys were all raised, we didn't, things got easier financially as they grew along, but we never had scads of money. We did have the opportunity here and there to invest in things that turned out to be okay investments. But what I want to would encourage young people to do is to have the discipline to either save or invest in something that might grow. If I have one big worry about all of our 6 successful grandsons, it is the cost of living has gotten so much that there isn't money going into a retirement fund. So I urge you guys, set up a retirement fund early on in life. If it's only $1 or $2 a week, it makes a huge difference in 10 years. And you think, 10 years I'll be making a bundle. Not necessarily. So put a little away with each paycheck. One of our sons and daughters-in-law, who both came from similar backgrounds of frugalness, they managed to put 10% away. If they were starving to death, 10% still went away. My gosh, they're not wealthy, but they're exceedingly well off now. Retired, but still working. So that's one bit of wisdom. Save or invest. And I don't mean invest in fly-by-night stuff, but rock-solid stuff. There were a lot of times I was alone. And I never knew my grandfather, my mother's father, because he died, I think, in 23, and I wasn't born till 26. And I really have credited the fact I was even born to the fact that my grandmother cried that she didn't have any babies to hold. Well, within the next 3 years, there were 4 grandkids. So I had immediate cousins my own age because she needed babies to hold. But apparently she was a worrier, and so it came down in the family that she would worry, and the grandfather would say, "Now, Mary Jane, dear, when we get to that river, there will be a bridge." And that was a comfort to me, that there will be a bridge. And there were. When our son died, which was the worst loss, or Chris died suddenly, I felt I had to take care of myself and stay alive so I could take care of Robert, because I thought I was going to lose him at the same time. That was in 2000. And, we eventually both made a decent recovery. to that, and we stayed in very close contact with our widowed daughter-in-law and with their daughter, who was only 9 at that time. They were in Seattle, and we were over there at least every 2 weeks for probably the first 6 months after Chris died. So, I mean, I was saying to dear Lord, I've just got to stay alive here. Help me stay alive. And so I did. That's really the worst loss. When my mother died, it was time. And bless his heart, when Robert died in May this past year, it was time for him to go, bless his heart. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, he's left me reasonably well fixed financially. I have a beautiful home, and I have friends, so I have a new motto. Since he's died, my motto is to say yes to every opportunity, and that's why I'm here.
I was born in the Depression era, and I had my mother, father, and 3 sisters. There were 4 of us. And we moved to Charleston, South Carolina before the war in 1941. Had lived in the country before, so we had very little. No running water or anything like that. So when we moved to Charleston, we moved into a project. And it had an inside bathroom and hot and cold running water. It was a marvelous time of my life. I found that even if you have very little, you can always get more. You can have a better life always. And so that's one of the first memories of a good time. And then from there, in my teens, my father was ill most of my life with alcohol addiction. And so my mother was a very strong lady, and there were the 4 of us girls. And my mother was a wonderful role model, which at that time, that wasn't even a saying to have a role model, but my mother was the glue that held this family together. And when I was 17, I graduated from high school. At 18, I married. And I thought, my life is just going great. Everything, I'm happy. I have everything. It is time to move on. And I knew that hard work would mean a lot. If you work hard, there's nothing you can't get. There's nothing that is too far to reach for. And I reached. You don't have to accept what's always given to you. Always look forward. Always look ahead. And there's always something good out there for you. But it takes hard work and determination to get it. So, and that's what I did. There were periods in everybody's life, I'm sure, that aren't the best in the world, but you got to make the best of it. And I was very happy at 18 when I was married, because I thought, oh, I'm in for it now. I can really do good. And I was very happy. Then I had, when I was 20, I had my first child, which ended up being twins. I had 5 children in a little more than 6 years. That started in 1950. In 1962, my husband left me with my 5 children. And I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to raise these wonderful children? I was terrified. And I had an individual tell me, a very good friend, you can feel sorry for yourself if you want to, but nobody else will. So I knew I had to do something. I put my children first, and I got on with my life. I worked hard. I worked at 3 jobs. The twins were 12 years old, and they did most of the babysitting after school so that I could work. I had a full-time job and 2 part-time jobs. And I made it. We were happy. I was scared because I really didn't know what I was going to do. But it just takes determination. I had no family that I could depend on because my father was ill. My sisters were all young with young families, so I had nobody that I could help me. I did it by myself, and so I think that probably was the hardest time of my life. And I knew I had to find a way for me to be happy in order for my children to be happy. And so I worked at it. God was good to me. And with His grace, that brought me forward. My children were raised in church. I mean, we went to church every Sunday. I was an Episcopalian and had gone to church as a child. And so I'm not over religious, but I know that God is always there. And with His help, I made it.
The elders are coming on stage now. And while they're coming on stage, let me tell you a little bit about what the rest of the program will look like. First of all, you have a program, and on the back of your program is a place where you can write something that inspires you, or if you have a question, which you can ask after the elders have their chance to speak. There will be children asking questions. Sarah put together 8 questions that different children have asked, and it will be delightful to have the elders answer those questions. Also on the back of your program are the wisdom statements of the elders, in case you want to remember those. Deb and I will introduce each of the elders individually, and they will share their life experience and their wisdom that they gained from that. And then we'll start the questions.
Okay, we will begin with Jane. It has been a tremendous pleasure for Teresa and I to get to know Jane. Jane brings a strong, positive outlook to life and to us when we're around her. She's engaging, she connects easily to others. Actually, you amaze me. And Jane lives the philosophy that anything is possible. True. And that is contagious. So I give to you one of the most inspiring and uplifting people I've met. Jane, could you tell a little bit about yourself and also let us know what being part of Elder Speak means to you?
Having seen that film, I'm a little shocked at myself. I am tough, but I didn't know I was that tough. So, being part of this Elder Speak has been a fellowship that's been delightful. Getting to know Teresa and Deb here has been wonderful. And though I had known of Otto, I've never really known Otto all these years. And to get to meet Dennis and Pat has just really been delightful. So that's meant a lot. I was wanting to say something erudite today, and that might be impossible. But I want you to know that I went to 3 sources to find out what wisdom might be.
so I didn't go to the whole book of Solomon. I just went to one of the Psalms. And I learned that wisdom begins with the Lord. And I truly accept that. Then Webster's Unabridged, I still have a Webster's Unabridged Dictionary, said the quality of being wise is being able to soundly deal sagaciously with facts. I hope so. And then I asked Siri. And she says, wisdom is the ability to act and to think and to act using knowledge. Oh gosh, I hope I've done some of that during my lifetime. But being with all of these wise people has been fun, and you heard me say that my new life motto is saying yes to every opportunity. I think maybe I've always done that, but I didn't have it identified in a phrase before. And I've got good friends out here today, and I thank every one of you for coming, and I hope we're still friends afterwards. So, is there something else you'd like to have me say?
Oh, where do I begin? Could you share some life experience and the wisdom that it brought to you with all of us?
My life is terribly centered in family. Though I have no sons living in the area, I still feel surrounded with lots of family love. I grew up, as Pat did, with a mother alone, and or as Pat raised her family, with a mother alone. But my mother had 4 sisters and 3 brothers, and her mother was terribly important in my life. So I grew up with this huge cadre of sisters. I mean, and they managed each other's lives rather effectively. But I learned, that family, you support family emotionally, particularly, and sometimes even financially. And goodness sakes, they supported us in every way. I don't know if I've got time to tell how. One aunt raised a garden, and she made sure that we had vegetables and were well fed. Another aunt was into music, and she always encouraged me in piano. And so each aunt played a part in, I think, the woman I became. And one of the aunts was a Culbertson Bridge teacher during those years. And as her daughter, my first cousin, and I finished our junior year in high school, that aunt said, "This summer we learned to play bridge." So that summer we learned to play bridge, and she gave me a lifetime of fun. So I think family is just hugely important. And then you gathered from my video that I think being frugal is also important. And frugality is not part of the way society looks at life today. But in my generation, you saved. And so I kind of hope the grandsons do. We give a little Christmas check each year to the 8 grandchildren. And with the understanding, each one of them knows it's supposed to go into their retirement account. I have no idea where it goes. So, with that, I want to say I'm thrilled to have been part of this. I'm flattered, and I thank you for the opportunity. And so say yes to every opportunity. Okay.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Dennis. Let me say a little bit about Dennis. Dennis is very kind. I can't look at Teresa because she makes me cry. Dennis naturally puts people at ease. I don't think he intends it, but it happens. He brings laughter to every one of our meetings. well as bringing muffins or bread or something to eat. He makes me feel like everything is going to be okay when I'm around him, and that's quite a remarkable trait. Dennis is one of the most caring and generous people I've met. So now, Dennis, can you do, as I asked Jane, tell us a little bit about yourself and what does it mean to be part of Elder Speak to you?
I survived childhood. I survived high school without killing myself or my friends. And it brings me to think of Toy Story and Sid. I was Sid. I was that type of child growing up, always into something, experimenting. And so when I say that I survived things, it seems like the advanced knowledge my father and my mother and my grandparents gave me, I ignored and tried to find out on my own if that was true. Anyway, I think, like you say, family is so important. I think I had a really good team of people in my family, aunts and uncles, my grandmother on my mom's side, my mom and dad. And they didn't have a lot of reins on me when I was younger, but, well, I remember my mom putting a boot in my butt once in a while, but when I get out of line. But yeah, I think that family support in keeping you guided. I mean, I was one to go left when she wanted me to go right. Mom had a couple simple rules. You get through high school, get your education, and find a trade that you can support yourself with. And try to wait until you're, aware of life before you get married and have a family and settle down. So I think those rules probably worked pretty well to keep me here, to get me to this point in life.
What would you say to your younger self or to a 15-year-old boy today?
Well, instead of screwing around in high school, go ahead and do it. Instead of screwing in grade school, I mean, I had an 8th grade teacher and a chemistry teacher in high school that tried to keep me in there and tell me how important education was, and I just kind of slipped through the system at that time, which you can't do today. I don't think you got that right. I went through high school and grade school, and you could go out and still get into the system with a C- or D+, so I would, if I had to go back, it was one question that one of those children asked, I'd go back and make sure I got good grades in high school, maybe got on to college, as I look back. So, but I didn't come out half bad. But I don't know anybody I don't think I could be Dennis today and make it work and be 15 today. It's these students out here have a much harder time right now than I did in 1949, 50, 51. They've got a tougher job than I ever had at that time.
So you're telling them to work at it.
Boy, keep doing that school stuff. Yeah, get in there and get that education, right? Yeah, that's just watching the video of myself, and I remember that issue with Gary. I mean, I'm surprised we survived at that time. I mean, we were in Spokane. I mean, the two of us on the north side. I think we were probably. So we dodged a lot of bullets.
Maybe an angel or two walking.
Oh yeah, that'd be that. Yeah. Although my mother thought probably the devil affected me a lot, but yeah.
Well, thank you, Dennis.
So, Pat.
You're up.
Hi.
Hi.
With Pat, I always feel I can be myself. You always give me a sense of security, stability, that everything's going to be okay. You give me the ability to just say, yeah, I can laugh about that, and I will be taken care of. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So what brings you to Elder Speak? Why did you say yes?
I just think it's such an important time in our lives as well as young people. I think growing older is just, as they say, it's not for sissies. And you've seen the first part of my life, but the second part has begun wonderfully. I'm 88 years old now, raised in Charleston, South Carolina, drove my 5 young children and myself to Aberdeen, Washington, to marry this man coming riding in on a white horse. This wonderful man's name was Harold, and he helped me raise my 5 children. And they were quite young when we married. My twin girls were 13, my oldest son was 11, my youngest son was 7, and my youngest daughter, Heidi, my youngest son was 11, my youngest 9, and my youngest daughter, Heidi, was 7. See, when you get a little older, you get a little confused. But it wasn't all easy, and all of a sudden God said to me, hey, wait a minute, I'm not done with you yet. And he gave me this lovely daughter, Linda. It was my husband's daughter by a previous marriage, and I could not love her more if I had given birth to her. She completed my 6th child, and to this day, she will always be my 6th child. It was at this time that I realized that I had been depended on from the time that my twin girls were born until the day that my youngest daughter married and they had all left home. It was what they call the empty nest. I realized that you have to let go. You have to let children have their own lives, make their own mistakes, have their own glories and their own disappointments, but they're still your children. And all of a sudden, I found myself kind of with this empty nest, not knowing what to do. Of course, I still had my wonderful husband, Harold, and he needed me, and I needed him. 13 years ago, I lost him to an illness. And so this was really when I felt alone. But along came some people that just were so good for me and to me. They were some friends. I had 4 wonderful friends right here in Leavenworth that I'd known for quite a while. And we would get together once in a while and have lunch, and every once in a while we'd have a glass of wine and dinner. And we laughed together. We had good times together. And then my good friend Marion, who was my neighbor, talked to me all the time about going to the senior center here. They had exercises and everything, and so she asked me again one day, and I decided to take her up on it. And I went to the senior center and met more people, made more friends. 5 of us play cards, a couple of times a month, and yes, we bet $1. If you win, you can win $5. Of course, one of those dollars is your own. But I justify that by saying, I didn't lose it, so I must have won it. And we have a marvelous time together. We celebrated all of our birthdays at one time. And when we went into the Olive Garden and they thought that we were all born the same day, they had a big party for us.
So, Pat, it sounds like friendship has changed your life.
Friendship has changed my life. Friendship has filled a void that nothing else would at this point. I think friends are so necessary. When I moved to Mountain Meadows 5 years ago,
And now I have friends there. So I have a multitude of friends, different places and doing different things. And there's 6 of us that sit at one table, and we're called the Cottage Ladies. We talk about everything in the whole world. Some is not, for mixed company discussions. But we have a marvelous time. They'll tell you what they think. They'll tell you if you're wrong. They'll tell you if you're right. And lots of times we can't bring up one subject between the 6 of us that makes any sense.
So I have a question for you. What does it take to make friends? As we get older, we surround ourselves with people of our own ages, but how do we make friends with people of other ages?
I think it's just by communicating with them. You have to let them know that they're important.
So people need to be important.
Absolutely, absolutely. They need to be important in your life, and you need to be important in theirs. I have many grandchildren and great-grandchildren that span a multitude of ages. I have a darling little great-granddaughter named Macy, and she's just one of the sweetest little girls, and she never leaves without a hug and a kiss. She asked me one time if I came over on a covered wagon. But she was quite young at that time. But she is just, as a young child, she is the light of my life. But friendship is something you have to work at. It doesn't come easily. You have to, if you make a mistake, you have to tell them you're sorry. And I don't mind doing that. But it takes work, a lot of work to make friends. Friends, though, have made my life, what I say at this time, pretty complete.
That is so wonderful. Thank you, Pat.
You bet.
Otto, you have been an amazing inspiration for me in that you embody confidence, and not only in yourself, but in everyone else too. It's just remarkable. I can feel with you that I can do anything. And I don't know if that's from your years of orchard work or teaching skiing or what it is, but you provide that, and it's been wonderful. Thank you. So I know that you are here today. Debbie asked you 2 years ago to be part of Elder Speak, and you said no. But here you are today, so what finally brought you here?
Well, Debbie's the one that talked me into it. But you wanted to have me tell a little bit about my life. I was very fortunate to be raised on the Columbia River when it was a river. And we learned right off the bat to watch the river and observe and have a high respect for the river that was going by us. And my family was so important. My mother, my father, and my older sister, she was 5 years older than I was. At first, I think she was a little jealous of me because she was the only child for that time. Anyway, we got along. We were very, very good. We did a lot of things as a family, the gardening, the picking cherries, so many of the activities on the farm, like running water in the ditches and learning how to turn on just so much water and make sure that the last tree gets water as well as the first tree. And so there was a learning process all the time here in the orchards. The other thing, I think one of the most important things was learning how to make boxes. My sister and I would make apple boxes, and we kind of challenged each other. She was older, so she could make them faster. So it was always me a challenge to make them faster. And I think the last year that we made together, we made 10,000 boxes. That was last week? Yeah. I don't know who made the most, but again, we learned how to do it with a clock, or we set our time. Each day we were going to make so many boxes. And if you got done ahead of time, sometimes you'll make a few extra, so the next day I would have some ahead of time. That would be much easier to get started the next day. And then my father, he made a mistake. He bought my first skis for me when I was 9 years old. And from then on, skiing has always been a passion of my life. The first skis were really interesting. They had a hole through the middle of the ski and put a leather strap, went through that hole. And then we improved on that. We took an old inner tube, cut it out, made a band, and we put the rubber band underneath our toe and over the heel of our work boots. That was our bindings. And that was just so much fun that I'd climb up and ski down, climb up and ski down. And then later Dad would take us up to Waterville and pick up a couple of the neighbor kids that came across from Antioch across on the ferries. He'd take us up there. So really learned to ski that way. As well as then also Dad took me down and got me into the Boy Scouts. In Boy Scouts I learned so much in the world of Boy Scouts. You always leave a campsite better than when you got there. It was just a learning process all the time. We hiked, we climbed Glacier Peak. I was just so privileged to be able to lead the group going up the ice field on Glacier Peak. Ooh, I only had to back up once around a crevasse, otherwise we made it very good. But the Boy Scouts as a whole helped me grow up a lot. I started out and ended up being an Eagle Scout, which I think is so important.
So, Otto, one of the things I remember you telling me is that you couldn't always do what you needed to do, get into town. You had to learn on your own.
Yes.
And what provided, how did that support you later in life?
Well, things always change. And like on an apple farm or a farm, you start out, we're going to do this today. Oops, you do that, but also you had to change and do something else. And I think that is, be ready for change and don't be afraid of change.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. Well, I don't know what else to... Anyway, and after World War II, I was in the service for a couple of years. Very fortunate. I spent most of that time going to college and as an apprentice seaman in Montana, which was very good. And then we were at St. Mary's Pre-Flight when the World War II ended. Well, it was before that, though. One morning we went to class and we were supposed to try to study 100-pound bombs that day. Well, that was the day they dropped the atomic bomb. Nobody knew what an atomic bomb was, and it was the most unbelievable thing. And then about a month or two later, they decided, oh, we got too many aviation cadets, you can either stay in or get out. Bye of the service, and went back, and then I started college that January, and graduated from college, and I started studying horticulture in college, and graduated in 1949. And there was a lot of us graduated at that time, and so we'd have 4 or 5 carloads of us going up to Stevens Pass every weekend. In those days, Stevens Pass or any of this, there was no only area that was close, were only open on weekends and holidays. So, but we had and Bob Church, one of my good friends, talked me into joining Ski Patrol, which was one of the greatest things I ever did, because you were always out there and you were helping people. And at the end of the day, we had to have what we call a sweep, make sure everybody got off the mountain safely. And you always had to have enough energy at the end of the day in case you ran across somebody who was in trouble. So I always told my kids, you never take the last run of the day. You'll always have enough energy to go ahead and help somebody else out. I'd not always taught. Then at 1949-50, they started ski school at Squilchuck, which was a free ski school, and so it was really interesting. They some of us had been skiing at Stevens. Well, brought us into, you're going to learn how to teach skiing. Well, that's where I first learned how to teach skiing. And then Bob Church and I went down the next year to Mount Hood and got some more classes and things. And from then on, avocation has been my skiing and vocation has been agriculture. And my dad and mother supported me so well. All those years, I really appreciated that they would support me in my avocation of being able to ski in the wintertime, and even later on where I taught full-time, Dad would take care of the winter crew and the pruning crew and let me do my thing.
Do you find yourself paying that forward with your own children?
I hope so.
Well, I see them here today.
No, I've got several here.
They have.
Thank goodness I have quite a few children here today and family, and they're so appreciative. And, having family is just the most wonderful thing.
That seems to be the theme here. Family is so important. Yeah.
You're doing things with your family and for your family, and you're always learning something from somebody else. Just like my daughter the other day, we were going to do some painting, and she said, "Well, after you get through with the paintbrush for the day, stick it in a plastic bag and put the paintbrush in the freezer." And the next time you take it out, maybe a month or later, all you have to do is thaw it out and just start painting again. I mean, it's such a simple thing as that, but you're always learning from somebody else.
Lifelong learners. I think you all are lifelong learners. Yeah.
Don't do as many dumb things right now as we did when we were younger. Well, maybe the three of them don't.
It is the goal.
Right.
Well, thank you, each of you. We're going to move on now into the children's questions section of the program. Let me find my paper. We have two mic runners, Sherry Wills and Susan Hyde, who will be bringing mics to, first off, the children who have questions that they have for the elders here, and then afterwards, for any of you who have questions, you simply will raise your hand and get their attention. But for now, with the children, I think we begin with Sherry, and I turn it over to you, Sherry.
All right. Well, our first question is from Jonah, who is age 10.
What's the most exciting adventure that you've had?
Okay, Dennis, this is for you. The question was, what's the most exciting adventure that you've had?
Okay, the most exciting adventure I had, and I read that, is not when I'm 79, but when I'm your age, about 11 or 12. Is that right? So I used to spend summers in Sunnyside with my grandparents, and my grandfather was a section foreman for the Northern Pacific Railroad, and he had a crew that worked all the way from Sunnyside to Prosser, maintaining track and equipment. And 1-2 week period I spent with him, I get to go on the, I guess they called them rail trolleys. The old days they had the Gandy dancers where they pumped them, but in my grandfather's time, which would have been in 49, 50, 51, they had gas-powered ones, and so his crew, I went on his crew one morning at 6 o'clock and was able to go down to Prosser and hang out all day long in 300-degree weather in Prosser, Washington in the middle of summer and try to stay out of trouble while they did work. And that experience was probably the most exciting at the time I was your age. That was pretty cool. And the other thing I got to do is I stayed with them a couple weeks. On Sunday night, it was my job to walk down to the main yard, climb up into a steam engine, and check the pressure gauges to see if my grandfather had to go down and put coal in it that night so it would stay hot. Pretty exciting stuff.
Thank you. And next? So the next question is from Tatum.
My question is, what's the best part and what's the worst part about being an elder?
Okay.
You, Pat, what's the best thing about being an elder, and what's the worst?
Well, the best thing, I think, is you no longer have the fashion policeman on your back all the time. If I want to wear white slacks after Labor Day, I can wear white slacks. If I want to wear my shorts, very loud knee socks with my braces, I do. So the best times are being able to have a mature mind, and be able to differentiate between what's right and what's wrong, to make the decisions of yes, this is right, or no, this is wrong. That's some of the best things, is a maturing of your mind. The worst things probably is trying to remember names. I have a lot of difficulty remembering names. I like to sit with my friends, and of all of us together, we don't have one good mind. But I go home and I have a very good friend at my house called Google. And he really helps me a lot. So there's a lot of things that go along with this. It's a learning experience, trying to figure out the very best that you can do or the very worst that you can do, and try to help everybody. So
it sounds like you don't stop learning.
Oh, no. Oh, never. No, I have a computer, 2 iPads, an iPod. I have Alexa, and she's pretty smart. And I recently got a smartphone. I put it off for a long time, but now I have a smartphone, so I feel smart. Don't know how to talk on it very well, but I'll learn.
Did you want to add to what Pat said?
No, she's perfectly capable. That was splendid.
Then we can go on to the next question.
All right, our next question has been asked by Anthony, who's age 11, but I think Tatum is going to pose the question.
So Anthony's question is, what do you think that technology is going to do to the world?
Otto, this one is for you. What do you think technology is going to do to the world?
Well, I think people depend on technology too much. It is so great, everybody uses it, but what happens? And they're forgetting about practicality. You know, like I just read an article that up in Alaska, if something happens to their transportation to Alaska, the grocery stores would be closed, clear out of business in 4 days. No. And so we've got to learn to depend upon ourselves as well as technology. And some of the stuff you get on technology is not correct anyway.
Anyone else want to speak to that?
I don't think so.
At the question, and technology is happening and we don't have much choice. we're in the Star Trek age and heading that way. But you make a good point. What if the computer goes down and we're stuck up there, you know, in space, or we're stuck down here, like when the grocery store is closed? We better have a bolt cutter, because we got to feed ourselves, or we have to know how to make it work, you know, without the technology. And it's moving pretty fast, and it's going. Well, we've already seen in major disasters, our technology isn't able to help thousands of people in a major disaster right now. So, and those communities are only way they can get it going is helping themselves, because we can't get there in time. So it's a catch-22, that's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is from Aaron, age 12, and will be read by Maisie.
So, Macy, wait a second, let Sherry come down. And she'll...
How has the economy changed from when you were a kid to now, and how has it affected your life?
Okay, I will repeat that. This is for you, Jane. How has the economy changed from when you were a kid to now, and how has it affected your life?
How has the economy changed? I'm not going to answer that question specifically. I'm going to say how has the value of the dollar changed? And some Otto, and maybe Dennis and Pat will believe this story, but most of you will not. The most expensive gift I ever have received in my life was the Christmas of 1970, when Robert gave me a stainless steel bowl, a big bowl, because I love to make angel food cakes, and I did not have a proper big bowl. The price tag was inadvertently left on, and it was $7.40. He had spent $7.40. If today $740 is not as much as the $7.40 was then. I mean, we were living on $150 a month, and we had 2 babies by that time. So what has happened to the dollar is what the big change is, it seems to me. What was the question again?
How has the economy changed, and how has that change affected your life?
Okay, I'm still fairly frugal. But the economy has changed in so many ways, and we all know this, and the technology has been, I mean, it hardly bears any resemblance to the, quote, economy I grew up in. And how has it changed my life? Well, I probably spend a little more freely than I did when there wasn't any money at all. Does that answer the question sufficiently?
To have lived in that, I can remember being a young person and my mom giving me a quarter to go to the movies and get popcorn. And
that was the movies and the popcorn.
Yeah, and that was, yeah, I mean, yes, not, yeah. And it was, 1949, 50, so, 50 cents, you could have a heck of a good day all day long.
Right.
And, but nowadays, you can't go to, if a family of 4 go to a movie, I think they just spent $100, didn't they?
Yeah,
I mean, or something. I don't even know if they got popcorn with $100. So, yeah.
It looks like Otto's got something to add to that. No? I don't know whether we satisfactorily answered your question or not. Things have changed.
There we go. Maisie has another question. So,
if you could go back in time and fix one mistake, what would it be? If you were to fix it, would you still be in the same place as you are right now?
Okay, Dennis, this is for you. It's so fitting.
I know one young man would have a better set of teeth. Yeah, that didn't work out well. It took me a long time to come to the conclusion that education is pretty sharp, and I think it goes back to the fact that I probably wouldn't have wasted as much time in school. And what it would have done, who knows? Maybe I would have had a PhD in something. I don't know. I mean, I know I would have had I would have done better in school and probably gone to school. Maybe I like taking things apart. I like mechanics and engineering, and I'm enthralled with the computers. I mean, I do computer work on the side. So I think for me, getting the education would be the thing I'd fix. Go back to. Right.
Dennis, you go to school now.
I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So when you turn 62 in the state of Washington, if any community college or four-year college, if they have room in a classroom, you can audit the class for the administration fee of $10 or $15 with the instructor's permission. Did you know that? I do that every winter. I take electronics, I take computer classes. I just go in and ask, and some instructors say no, and I want you to go through our whole program, but a lot of instructors at the community college or four-year college, if the classroom is not full and you go in there as seniors, that's one of our gifts that we get. We can audit a class, and they don't have to grade it. They don't give you grades, or you don't have to worry about it, but you can pay the lab fees and the administrative fees and take those classes. And I'll tell you what, it's really cool. And the cool thing that happens there is this last winter, I took a beginning engineering class, and the instructor was from India, incredible instructor. She was a neat lady. And she said, yeah, you can sit in my class. And I'm sitting in there with 16 other students that aren't more than 18 years old. And so the statement she made when I asked if I could, join her class, she says, yeah, we might want to use some of your experiences. So anyway, so I was able to add some things there, but it's interesting. And guess what it does when you're 78, 79 years old going to school on a campus? You get younger. You have no choice. You have no choice. You're hanging out with young people. Yeah. So anyway, it's really good.
I have to ask. You were a prankster. You were a prankster as a young man or as a child, and you are now so generous. You are so helpful to people. I wonder if that is tied to your youth, and if you had not been that prankster, would you still be the same man you are today, who is making root beer floats for firefighters and stopping them as they walk by?
I don't. That's a good question. I'll have to mull that over for a minute. Well, we were talking about family. I think I grew up in an environment where my mom and grandmothers and aunts and uncles were very generous, and I don't know that I got a feeling it's probably from growing up in a family that was pretty much caring. I think that's probably the background for that.
So again, family.
But isn't the Depression years the years when people looked out for each other?
They looked out for each other a lot more then. Absolutely. If you didn't have a good support system, which that wasn't a word back then, but if you didn't have a good support system, I don't know, a lot of families would have been in real trouble.
Did you find that in Orondo? Did people support one another during hard times?
Yes, they did. I think the people would come by someplace at our place, and want a meal, okay? We would, as long as they're willing to do a little work for their meal, fine. If somebody just wanted to have a handout, it was not quite as easy. I think the privilege of being able to work and support yourself is something that was really tough during the Depression days. We had a lot, people, but again, people would help themselves, help other people as much as they could. And I think it's really important that where the neighbor, if they got in trouble, people didn't know where they got their food, but the food came to their house.
Okay, we're ready for the next question.
So the next question is from Ella, age 11, and will be read by Kaylin. Kaylin, raise your hand. There you
are. I dream about owning a gym, being on the beach every day, and becoming a billionaire. What were you dreaming about when you were my age? And did your dream come through?
This one is for Pat. So Pat, Ella dreamt about owning a gym, being on the beach every day, and becoming a billionaire. So what were you dreaming about when you were 11, and did your dream come true?
When I was at that age, my mother made me black sateen bloomers that I wore on weekends when I didn't go to school. And my mother gave me some scraps of material, and I tried to make what I called then toe shoes because I wanted to be a ballerina. My mother had taught me how to sew, so I built these toe shoes, and then I went out in the barn and I got some little pieces of wood and stuck in the toes. I put them on and they hurt so bad I couldn't stand it. So that was, no longer was I going to be a ballerina. Then I decided, well, maybe I'd become an actress. This is the very truth. I wanted to be an actress like Shirley Temple or one of those famous child stars. I don't think I worked very hard at it because I did not become an actress. But then as I got a little older and we would walk downtown and go by a bank, I would see these ladies in high-heeled shoes, and I wanted to become one of those. I wanted to be a bank teller, and I did work hard at that. I was in banking for 27 years, and then when I completed that 27 years, I went to work as a bookkeeper for 10, and then I retired. So dreams do come true, but you have to work hard.
So the high heels got you into banking,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
I think we're ready for the next one.
This is from me. My name is Kaylin, and I'm 8.5 years old. I love sleepovers at my grandparents' and making pancakes in the morning with my grandpa. What are your favorite memories with your grandparents?
Okay, this is for you, Jane, from Kaylin. I love sleepovers at my grandparents' and making pancakes with my grandpa in the morning. What are your favorite memories with your grandparents?
You know, I'm so glad I got that question because I had the greatest grandmother in the world. And I became a big, tall kid fairly young in life, but my grandmother never was taller than 5 feet tall. And she was kind of round, and she had a rocking chair. And I got to sit in that rocking chair on her lap, even after I had to wrap my legs around the rung to stay in her lap. But she could solve any problem, emotional, physical. She could take care of any problem. So my association with my grandmother was exceedingly close. And I loved sleepovers with her because she had feather beds. and feather pillows, real feathers. But then she was, she had raised 8 children without probably any money to speak of. And she grew chickens, Rhode Island Reds. You may not even know what a Rhode Island Red was. They were big red chickens. And my little 5-foot-tall grandmother could go out there and grab one of those chickens around, this is awful to even say, around the leg, and spin it around a little bit till it was a little cuckoo, and just grab it by the neck and flip it around, and off came the head. And, then that chicken got dunked in hot water, and that night there would be the best chicken and dumplings in the world. I love those memories.
Can you tell us more about the feather bed?
Well, I don't know whether, as I look back on it, there weren't too many geese around there to have down. So I kind of now wonder if those feathers were chicken feathers. I don't honestly know.
So I take it you didn't go to the store and buy a mattress in that time? Or
No,
your grandmother did?
My grandmother did not. No, that's true. Isn't that interesting? Who would have even thought of that? Right.
Okay, thank you.
That goes back to the question about how the economy is different, doesn't it? Yeah, right.
This one is from Elizabeth, age 10. What was it like when you were a kid? And how is it different today?
This one is for you, Otto. What was it like when you were a kid, and Elizabeth is age 10, and how is it different today?
Oh, when we were, as a youngster like that, we had, some people call them chores. I told them just, it was working with the family and working with, luckily we were raised on a farm, so we always had something to do. And poor kids today, they don't get the chance to be out getting dirty, getting their hands in the dirt, and basically having chores or jobs to do that help the family survive.
I never thought of that it's actually, you're supporting the family even at 10 years old.
Oh, absolutely. We had to, well, one time my folks got the flu. My mother got the flu, my dad got the flu, my sister got the flu. I was the only one that didn't get sick at all. So I had to go out and milk the cow, the poor cows. I never got all the milk out that Dad did. But if something happened, everybody pitched in and did what they could. And so I think it's tougher for the kids nowadays. They've got too many actual sports that they bing, 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 bing. They don't get to go out and just play as much as we did. Some of our work was play, like working in the ditches with the water, running the ditches in the water. Well, at the end, we'd stop at the bottom and make a pond and take some sticks and make our boats and stuff like that. We had a lot more fun, I think, in those days without being structured. And I think a lot of the kids nowadays have so many structured events that they kind of miss out on the fun. And the fun, and when I teach skiing, I try to bring the fun into the skiing. And I still do it today. And I think it's so important in anything you're learning if you can get some fun out of it.
Jane?
Well, we raised our boys like Otto was raised. I mean, one morning, I said, go out and play in the dirt. And, they had a wonderful time building tunnels. They didn't have to become engineers. No, they could have, but they did other things. But I think kids need that freedom that they don't seem to have today.
Yes.
As one of my friends said when his cell phone rang and he looked at it, he said, this was about 10, 15 years ago, it was one of his daughters. And I said, you better answer that. He said, no, I don't need to know where she is. When I left of a morning, my mother didn't know where I was till I got back at night.
Yeah, right. You had to tell your folks where you were going, and maybe you'd get back.
Yeah, right, and maybe you didn't go that spot.
Yeah, that's right. But you try to do it for to be safe.
True. We like that.
I think the other thing too, at our age, and growing up in Spokane, I think about it, and it was thinking Friday night, 10-year-old boy out with my friend Gary until 11 o'clock at night. It was not a problem. I mean, we were in the neighborhood playing kick the can in front of the house, but we were out, and it was safe. I mean, it was just uncommonly safe, and it made me think about that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for these wonderful children questions. Now let's open it up. We have a few minutes, not too much longer, maybe about 5 to 10 minutes for other questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and one of the mic runners will come and I'll let you ask the question.
I'd like to comment on the technology. I'd like to comment on the technology. It's affecting relationships, communication. Everywhere you go, people are looking at their smartphones. They're not interacting. And in the restaurant, no matter where you are, not only kids, but adults. I mean, it's common. And I think that's going to affect our culture on down the road.
My question is for Pat, but anybody can, of course, chime in. I'm fascinated by the quality of grit or resiliency or stick-to-itness or toughness, and I'm fascinated by the elders who had to have seems like a great deal more of that grit, and I worry are we losing that a little bit. Do you think you were born with that, or was that nurtured into you, or is it through your faith, or how does one acquire more grit?
I think a lot of it came from my mother. She was a very strong person. She was a very small person, but she was very strong. And she taught all of the 4 of us girls, my 3 sisters and myself, that you've got to behave, you've got to do right, you've got to try to be happy and do all the things that make other people happy. And I think a lot of that did come from my mother. And I also think that a little of it was born in me. I've always tried to look on the brighter side. Now, I haven't always been able to do it, but I've probably always tried. I knew the ethic of work for what you wanted, work for how it was done. And I think it's just a constant thing in a person's life to continue that thought and to be happy. I was taught a great working ethic, was happy that I was, because my life has been very full. And even if tomorrow I were to become incapacitated, I hope I would still have that grit. I would sure work at it.
I'd like to thank you all for your wisdoms, and I'm really soaking it all in. And you gave wonderful advice, to the young people. But I would have a question. What advice would you give for those that are entering elderhood?
Yeah, I know, we talked about this earlier, didn't we?
I missed that.
He was asking, what advice do you have for someone entering elderhood?
Plan ahead.
He's already there.
It's too late.
It's too late. We're talking to the children now. Plan ahead. For him, it's too late.
I don't think it's too late to plan ahead. I think you got to look forward to tomorrow, because today is great, and tomorrow let's get it better if we can. If you got a little problem, solve the problem, and if you can't solve the problem, don't waste a worry by worrying about it.
Or about all the technology. The lady in front talked about iPads and iPhones and everybody texting. Yeah, I'd like to address that. It's just mind-boggling. I can't even walk in my house. I got a new lady living there. Echo or Alexa, I don't know who the heck I'm talking to. And my wife Randy, she'll admit this. We'll be talking upstairs, walking upstairs, and Echo will make a comment about it. I don't understand that question. It's an interesting
going along with the technology. I'd like to go back into the school thing just a little bit. We forget what a privilege it is to be able to go to school in the United States. And I think that our school systems have really gone downhill because of that. It's still a privilege to be able to go to school. And I think we should get back and do everything we can to teach that to the young people.
And I think your point is about how they're run from the top up. The team in there in the classroom, they're trying to bust their butts to do the right thing, but they got their hands tied. There's so many children coming through, running through the system. Yeah, our school needs changing from the top up, the top part. Really respect the teachers going in there and do. What a vocation would you? I don't know if I'd even take on the job these days. It's pretty tough. Be a teacher these days.
Takes a special person to become a teacher.
Yeah. Don't quit, you teachers. Stay out there. We don't want them living with us.
All 6 of our grandsons are doing really well financially, except the one who's doing the most noble work, the first grade teacher.
Tough job.
Mm-hmm. But he loves it. He loves those kids, and so he'll do a great job.
That's cool.
So I would still like to hear advice to people coming into their retirement years from the 4 of you. I think that's a great question, and can you say more?
I'll tackle that initially. I was always interested in music, and so I spent time going to musical things. But as Robert had to work less at the law office, he kind of was casting around for something we'd both enjoy doing. And I don't remember what he suggested first, and I laughed. We didn't want to do that. And finally he said, well, you seem to be interested in birds. Shall we do some bird watching? And so we agreed. We had a fabulous time till he got a little macular degeneration. We birded all over the United States, and it was a great hobby together. We met wonderful people interested in the hobby, and we saw fabulous places. And I've joked that I've birded in every garbage dump and suey hole in America. But it was a wonderful hobby. So a hobby helps going into elderhood.
I think you need definitely to have looking forward to doing something, and a hobby or listening to different people, or it's just something that keeps you going, looking ahead.
I think that one of the important things, as I said earlier, are friendships. Friends are a great thing to express yourself with. They help you, you help them. Don't ever give up having friends. It's a very important thing. You've just got to keep moving, keep exercising, keep meeting people. To meet people is a good way to become an elder or go into the elderly phase. Just keep going. And I think that's one of the main things to becoming older.
Wonderful. Thank you.
More questions.
This question is for Cousin Otto. Otto, can you think of any advice that Grandpa Ross would have passed on to share?
Repeat it.
She's asking, is there any advice that Grandpa Ross would have wanted to pass on and share?
Boy. Well, if you're going to do a job, do it good.
How did he teach you that?
How did he teach me that? Well, in almost all the ways of working in the fields, anything you did, you wanted to complete the job and do a good job at it. If you did a sloppy job, it really turned out, like if you were making apple boxes and you were sloppy with your nails and you created what they call a shiner. Well, then you had to stop, take that darn nail out, and then replace it. Or if you'd been careful in the first place, you would have pounded the nail straight. So.
What would have happened if the box was built wrong?
We didn't build them wrong.
I probably have the answer.
We had a form.
The box Dennis built would have dropped the apple somewhere along the line. Getting to the truck, they would have fell out. The board would have broke. Yeah, so so that's interesting. Yeah.
No, we had to build them correct because not only were we putting them out to be picked in, but then we had to take them to the packing shed, which we had. Almost all the orchardists had their own packing sheds, and so you had to have a good, solid, clean box to put in the wrapped apples in the box, and they'd be put in just so weight, and then they would put the lids on, and then we labeled them and shipped them out.
How do they get all those apples from the trees to the store without bruising most of them?
Well,
always amazed me.
That is, nowadays they have trays between, but in the early days you had to pack just the right size apples in the box, and you had to create a little crown on the top so that when you put them in the litter, you squeeze them a little bit, but not enough to hurt them. But if they were loose, then they'd bounce around in shipment. So they had to be packed just properly.
Cool.
And teaching people how to pack apples was quite an art. Because some people act right-handed and some people act left-handed, and you had to make sure that they packed it. And then the litter down there at the end, if a box was went too high, he'd send it back, and people had to repack them.
Cool.
And if they were too low, then they had to pack them. So we wanted to do it right in the first place.
Until tonight, I didn't know we had right and left-handed apples.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting it. Still getting wisdom.
It just keeps coming.
It just keeps coming.
So we are at the end of our time, and I would like to invite, is there someone who No? Okay. I would like to invite Steve Stroud to come up and close this program for us.
Well, that was something else, wasn't it? Please. There's a couple things that happened that I think you'll probably share when I say this. One is I feel wiser than I did an hour ago, right? Don't you feel wiser? And the other is that throughout the entire event, my heart kept opening more and more and more. And it's only with an open heart that we can create compassionate connections and connect ourselves with each other and build resilient and healthy, dynamic, and evidently very fun relationships. So I want to thank you for joining us today. I want to thank the elders for sharing their wisdom. I want to thank you for listening to their wisdom. And please join us out in the foyer, is that what it's called? Out in the opening there. There's more wine, there's some snacks. And thank you again. And there are opportunities, as Drew mentioned earlier, to support the Ripple Foundation, Mountain Meadows, as always, with your generous tax-deductible donations. So thank you very much. Have a good evening. We'll see you out front.